Okay.
Okay. And now I can go here.
Okay, so are we recording?
Yes.
Hi, guys. We're not recording? Which one is it, recording or not recording?
It's recorded.
Okay,
It's recording either ways.
all right. Well, hello, everyone. Sanjay, can you introduce our activity tonight?
Okay. Today we will be talking about drug proving, and we will talk about history, importance of drug proving, and in relation with Materia Medica Pura. If we can just have overlook over the symptom presentation, right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a bunch of other stuff too. Because
And
that's just some.
if there anybody who can just open the topic, how the history of drug proving began, how was the homeopathy in earlier days, when it's about in 1790, in 1790s. In 1790s, actually, Hahnemann began, means he was while translating that Cullen's Materia Medica.
Yep, Cullen's Materia Medica was in English, and everybody on the continent, which Europe is called, if you happen to be in the British Isles, wanted to read that work. And since Hahnemann said that allopathy was killing too many of his patients and it was just too horrible and he couldn't do it anymore, he decided that he was going to do translations to make money to feed his family, which is a good idea. And while he was doing Cullen's Materia Medica, he had a cunning plan, which was, anybody remember the cunning plan that Hahnemann came up with?
Homeopathy.
Yeah, but with which drug?
Cinchona bark. He came up with the literature about the cinchona bark, that it is bitter and it causes malaria. That's why it
Right.
treats the malaria.
Yes. And he's like, is it true?
Yes.
And it proved not to be true. That it's not because of the bitter property, right, guys?
And from okay,
Look, we got one more.
then after he started actually he's experimenting various remedies, but
Yeah, I've got something really
correction.
fun for us to read. Can I read something fun?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Okay, what I have here. Oh, who's this? Who's the new person? Somebody I don't recognize.
she's
Okay, I'm going to read
someone
something
from
fun.
Nanded.
She's what?
She's from Nanded.
Okay. I have the preface to Fragmenta from the German, not from the German, from the French edition, and I translated it with Google Translate into English. Would anybody like me to read that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
Okay.
before that, I would like to tell something.
Okay, you go ahead and
How
tell something and then I'll read
Hahnemann
this.
collected those remedies, like cinchona bark. He was translating the Cullen's Materia Medica, all pathogenetic symptoms which were already known, right? And then with that data, he began to experiment. So we see he collected a lot of other drugs also.
Hmm.
but data was not proven homeopathically uh, at that time till 1796. He just was collecting the drug with the symptom which were already known by other uh, format books or
The interesting
pathogenetic
thing
symptoms.
about that though, Sanjay, is that in the preface to fragmenta means pieces or parts or fragments. It says that he did the provings, and at the end of each proving, and if we pull up the Latin, we can see it, he gives, he quotes other medical sources. If you can pull up fragmenta, we can see that. But he has definitely done provings himself, and that's the part, the earlier part of each remedy in the fragmenta, and then in the
Exactly.
afterwards, he gives other, what is it? What's the word?
Actually, he collected those symptoms, and
Collected
after
symptoms.
that, right, after that, he noticed that not everyone was proving exactly the same symptom, which were from the other books. And then he thought to prove drugs on himself, his
Right.
friends and
Yeah.
family. And then he
Yeah.
began from 1796, and he collected how many drugs remedies were there? I think 27 remedies.
27.
27 remedies. And this book was named Fragmentum. What is
It is
the
Medicamentorum Positivis
medicamentum for this?
and more in sano corporo humano observatis.
That is Latin. Latin, it's really difficult to pronounce. Tikwa may pronounce that much
Oh,
better.
my Latin's really bad. I only had 1 year of Latin in high school. So let me know when I should read the preface.
Who is in waiting room? No, I think we
Oh,
got this.
no,
All
it's
everyone
Siva
ready.
Kumran again. Who's Dr. MS?
Mubashira. Mubashira.
Okay. All right.
Hello, Mubashira. Can you just say hello to everyone?
Hello, all of you.
Okay. Tikwa, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So the preface is translated from French, so it's not perfect English. Substances that nourish the body are called food. We give the name of drugs to those which, ingested, even in small quantities, can change in man the state of health in a state of disease, and by that very state of disease in a state of health. The first duty of the artist is to possess the most perfect knowledge of the instruments of his profession. But unfortunately, no one believes that this is the doctor's duty. Indeed, so far no doctor that I know of has bothered to research what the drugs produce in themselves, by themselves. That is to say, the changes they bring in the body in a healthy state, so that it becomes clear to which diseases in general they are suitable. The effects of medicaments, when we employ them in the midst of the disorder of disease, do not appear as they are in themselves, but modified by the symptoms of the disease. These are phenomena of an entirely mixed and complicated nature, which make medical empirical when taken as a basis and which are of little use in the actual practice of the art. Let me call these effects relative. As for me, I thought it was better not to administer to the patient drugs other than those which affects in healthy humans. It should be called absolute or positive, would have been recognized by me before, and as much as possible, experienced. I have undertaken experiments for the most part on myself for a number, on other people whom I knew to be healthy and free from any apparent harm. Simple drugs develop in healthy humans effects which are specific to each of them. However, they do not produce them all together or according to a single and constant series, nor all in each individual, but some perhaps today, others tomorrow. This one in the first place with Caius, and that one in the third place with Titus, but in such a way that Titus arrives at a given moment by the use of the medicine, to also experience what Caius previously felt of it. Any medicine produces effects, which appear some earlier, others later. These two series of phenomena are in a way opposed and dissimilar to each other. We could even say they are diametrically opposed. I call some primitive or first order, and others secondary or second order. Each remedy administered in a suitable dose has on the human body a duration of action, more or less long, which is specific to it and which is, so to speak, determined. After this time, all the symptoms from the drug cease at the same time. This is why the effects of drugs are manifested, depending on the nature of the latter, in a short space of time. Their primitive actions appear and disappear in a few hours, then secondary actions appear and disappear no less quickly, but it is not possible to determine in a constant manner the precise hour when each of them is accustomed to appear. This is partly due to the different nature of the subject, partly the difference in doses. I have indicated by capital letters the symptoms which I observed most often. I have more rarely observed those which are printed in smaller type in italics. I present only with reserve those which we are put in brackets as not having observed by me, if not only once, and in case too little and too little clear. The parentheses also indicate that one could not grant an extreme confidence to the saying of the subject, either because of lack of intelligence or as a result of some deviation committed in the regimen. I have observed some medicaments which in the course of their operation present 2-3 paroxysms, even more, embracing the two series of phenomena which appear in general, as we have said, some first and some in second place. I also thought I sometimes observed certain effects which could be related to a third order. The symptoms which I have called residuals are only encountered where enormous doses have produced enormous disorders and when certain first or second order effects have persisted for longer than one or the other, depending on the nature of the subject is more or less disposed to such and such morbid phenomena. When one employs the medium and small doses, one observes, so to speak, only the effects of the first order. Second-rate ones are becoming much rarer. It is especially with the former that I have taken care of myself as capable of rendering the greatest services in the practice of the medical art, and is very worthy of being known. In all that I have been given to observe, I have very scrupulously and religiously sacrificed to the truth. Let us use this research, whatever it is. No one knows better than I how weak and imperfect it is. I added at the end of each drug whatever the medical authors have noted, like doing something quite different about the positive effects of the drugs. So we come around to what Sanjay said earlier about other medical authors, and he's saying that that's quite different than what he has found during actual provings of a single substance. So this is his earliest works.
Yeah.
You are reading this from Fragmenta?
Well, I found a copy of the preface of Fragmenta in French and translated it with Chrome to English. So that's why it doesn't sound perfect, but we get the idea.
So he did the proving on himself, and the symptoms, the proving symptoms are also noted in Fragmenta, not just the pathogenetic symptoms.
Exactly. Himself and his family.
Yes.
Yes, and other people, maybe some friends. He doesn't give the notations like he does in Materia Medica Pura or in the chronic diseases of who the provers are. But we do have early information about his children going about the hillsides, picking different known to be medicinal plants, etc., etc. And I think that these were done not in potency, but in the crude form. And that's why he's having so many things, you know, the enormous disorders by the large heroic substances and all that.
And somewhere he also written that um, after dynamization, remedy produces more symptom than actually what is producing in cruder form.
Oh, 100%, because when we've done, you know, when we've made something into a potency, we've released something special from inside it. There's the inner essence. So much more is released that affects the body. Yeah, like we see here in
and we see more refined work in Materia Medica Pura, which he actually began from 1805 to 1811. He actually published Materia Medica Pura in 1811.
like it says here in aphorism 128.
1 minute, I have that.
You do have that? Okay, that's handy.
Okay. Yeah, 128 you are asking for, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Let me tell, but if you can see, because I cannot see those aphorisms.
Yeah, I can barely see that, but I can read it from my book. It's fuzzy. Should I just start reading?
Yeah.
The most recent observations have shown that medicinal substances, when taken in their crude state by the experimenter for the purpose of testing their peculiar effects, do not exhibit nearly the full amount of the powers that lie hidden in them, which they do when they are taken by the same object in high dilutions, potentized by proper trituration and succussion, by which simple operations, the powers which in their crude state lay hidden and as it was dormant, are developed and roused into activity to an incredible extent. In this manner, we now find it is best to investigate the medicinal powers, even of such substances that are deemed weak, and the plan we adopt is to give to the experimenter on an empty stomach daily 4 to 6 very small globules of the 30th potency of such a substance, moistened with a little water, or dissolved in more or less water, and thoroughly mixed, and let him continue this for several days. Isn't that fascinating that he says that this is how you make a proving, that you give a few pellets, put it in a little water, and let them
Yes.
continue it for several days?
What
Sounds like we might do accidental provings pretty easily then. So he says that it unleashes, it develops the power to prepare it into a potency, as opposed to a mother tincture. A mother tincture has herbal power. It'll be totally different than something that's been potentized. And then he says that the effects of this dose, if it's slight, take more. And then take more. And take enough so that there's something to record.
Madam,
Yes.
ma'am, in Kunstli translation, he said about drug proving should be given in modified doses. Can you allow me to share that translation?
Yeah, go ahead and add that. I haven't read Kunzling since I was probably 19 years old, so please do that. Are you going to share your screen or type it or read it?
Okay. Now try. You want to share the screen.
The main advantage to giving, if we can find somebody who can prove a medicine well enough with just one dose, is that we get the timing of the symptoms. And that is an advantage, because the symptoms that come out later in the proving are of higher value, the ones that come early in the proving. Yeah, so then you're probably talking about like 131, Sivakumaran? Can I move to 131, Sanjay?
No, I don't have 131. I
What
have
should I ask you to prepare? 135, right? No, 128? Yeah, we did 128. What was the next one I asked for?
131.
Yeah,
133. No, sorry,
133.
133.
Okay, but I want to say something about 131. If, however, in order to ascertain anything at all, the same medicine must be given to the same person to test for several days in ever increasing doses. I think this is what Sivakumaran's talking about, the ever increasing doses. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. He mentioned in the last two lines, ma'am, 4 to 6 very fine granules of the 30th potency of the substance moistened with a little water,
Mhm,
or better still dissolved in water,
Mhm.
and thoroughly shaken. Here, thoroughly shaken means he mentioned to success.
Mhm. Yes.
So, yeah, ma'am. So, can you explain that last line, ma'am?
Oh,
Why,
sure.
why he
Yeah.
gave two methods for drug proving? Because he mentioned little water, or he used the word better still, dissolved in water with thoroughly shaken.
Yeah, so he's saying here that when they're taken in their crude state, the experimenter is not going to get all the effects. So it's better to give them after they've been prepared to the 30th potency and then put in water, 4 to 6 very small globules, and then put in water or dissolved in more or less water. He doesn't give the reason why there's more or less water. It's just a little ambiguous there about why there's more or less water. But he's saying that we don't want to give it just like mother tincture, but we want to give it in the 30th and that we want to dissolve it in a little bit of water. Probably because when it's in a little bit of water, it reaches more nerve endings.
This is like water dosing.
Yeah. But water dosing, we wouldn't really give in the same thing. Yeah, then you've got a really interesting point there, Dr. Siva Kumran.
Ma'am, he mentioned better still.
Better still,
dissolved
put it
in-
in a little bit of water. Yeah.
better still dissolved in water
Mhm.
and thoroughly shaken.
Yes.
Which means every time we have to when we repeat ever increase dose, or each time we have to thoroughly shake that dilution, the 30th dilution, which means 30.1, 30.2, 30.3, like that it's going, or like that. That's what my doubt, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's like that, even in approving, he says. Because we're in the section of provings. Not to mention, of course, we have to do that when we're treating our patient because the body does not accept the dry dose repeatedly, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did I not answer your question? Did I fail to answer the question properly? Yeah, in this edition, it says thoroughly shaken. In this edition, it doesn't say thoroughly shaken. Can we continue?
Yes, ma'am, we can continue, ma'am.
Boric, he has written thoroughly mixed.
Yes. The screen shared is from Grunse.
Yes, it's Kunstli translation.
Okay.
Yeah, so shaken is missing from this one. Okay, but we do get the gist of it, that we need to continue dosing people until they get effects. And we can do it for several days in ever increasing doses. That means we could even give larger quantities. so that we can get their pure effects and not have ambiguity. Okay, and which one were we going to read next? Okay, 135. The whole of the elements of disease a medicine is capable of producing can only be brought to anything like completeness by numerous observations on suitable persons of both sexes and of various constitutions. Here's one of those places where he uses that word constitutions, because it does not mean constitutional medicine. It means physical makeup. We can only be assured that a medicine has been thoroughly proved in regard to the morbid states it can produce, that is to say, in regard to its pure powers of altering the health of man, when subsequent experimenters can notice little of a novel character from its action, and almost always only the same symptoms as had already been observed from others. So the more people that have the same symptoms during the proving, the more reliable it is. But he never talks about, in this book, he doesn't ever talk about what kinds of things can be proved. He's always talking about the proving of medicinal substances. So when we go to things like the materia medica pura or the chronic diseases, these are things that were used generally as medicine, whether it's in folk medicine or through physic of allopathic medicine, or even in oriental medicine. Lots of these things are poisons, and they all have effects on the body. Nowadays, people are proving or trying to make provings of all kinds of different things. Like, can anybody name a modern proving that is not based on an old known medicine?
Coca-Cola?
Is there actually a proving of Coca-Cola?
Chocolate?
I mean, there was just recently a proving of a perfume called Chanel No. 5. I don't know how that's supposed to be a medicine. And, the materia medica was greatly enlarged after people came to America and started get in with the eclectic school. We got a lot more medicines that we commonly use, things like gelsemium and apis, stuff like that are newer medicines that are well proved, that were known to be medicines, with, let's say, the Native Americans. So medicine always has to keep developing and changing. But I don't know about some of these newer provings. Some of them they don't follow the rules. So the rules of proving are important, because that's how we ascertain the effects of what is curable in a substance.
Right.
What else are we going to share, Sanjay?
I have only the 135. No, 133.
Yeah. Oh, yes, 133. Very, very important. On experiencing any particular sensation from the medicine, that is during the proving. Oh, now we can see that. That's beautiful. It is useful, indeed necessary, in order to determine the exact character of the symptom. This gives characteristics, right? To assume various positions while it lasts. and to observe whether by moving the affected part, by walking in the room or the open air, by standing, sitting, or lying, the symptom is increased, diminished, or removed, or whether it returns on again assuming the position in which it was first observed, whether it is altered by eating or drinking, or by any other condition, or by speaking, coughing, sneezing, or any other action of the body, and at the same time to note at what time of day or night it usually occurs in the most marked manner, whereby it is peculiar to and characteristic of each symptom will become apparent. So when somebody is undergoing approving and
Ma'am,
they
it's not
notice,
audible, ma'am. Please,
it's not,
it's, ma'am, your voice is not audible.
what's not audible?
For
I
me, it's
think
audible.
he is not able to hear you.
He's not able to hear?
You.
I wonder why. Can everybody else hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sanjay, can you try to solve that?
No, I don't see any problem. Maybe a network issue at his side.
Or maybe his earphone issue? I don't know. Okay, so we'll just continue. So while somebody's having a symptom, let's say that somebody's having a frontal headache. Hahnemann wants the prover to do things like go outside, lay down, stand up, sit down, do all different kinds of movements and see if it is better or worse. This is how we get modalities.
Yes.
And that's very important because we know that our modalities are extremely important to make symptoms characteristic. So that's very clever that he put that there because that might not naturally come up during the day while somebody's doing a proving. And if you remember, people who are doing provings need to be careful what they eat, and they need to be careful that they don't have important business to do, and they need to be careful that they don't become upset, and they need to be very, very careful and live a very careful life while they're doing their proving. And they must not use wine, coffee, nor tea, and only eat peas, carrots, and bread. Right, guys?
And for how many days we notice the symptom? We record the symptoms for like 1 month, 2 months. For how many days?
Well, that is a very interesting thing because Hahnemann and Boninghausen both talk about the action of a remedy being quite fast. And we have here, let's see, we're looking at arsenicum. It tells at the end of each symptom, well, not each one. Okay, shining hot swelling of the feet to above the ankles with round red spots which cause a burning pain. That's after 3 days.
Okay.
Okay, so they do have notations on treading on the top of the instep in the ankle, pain as if it were sprained after 72 hours. But not everything has a notation as to the time. For example, we have on awaking, the heels are painful as if she had lain on something hard.
Those people are brave.
Hmm?
Provers are brave.
Yes, they are. Yes, they're very, very brave. Yeah. So with some of the things we have the time periods, but not with everything.
And there is also one thing, primary action of the drug and secondary action of the drug.
Can you tell us about that, Sanjay?
What is question, Madhu?
What is primary action of the drug and secondary action of the drug?
Actually, primary action itself is from drug. Means it's a first action, what action it has, and secondary action is from body against that primary action.
Yeah,
It's re-
because the vital force is responding, which then presents a cure, hopefully.
In allopathic medicine, we see drug. It's only primary action,
Okay.
and here in drug proving, we see this primary action also.
Can you give some examples, please?
Okay. Okay. We
Maybe
are
you can give an example of a fever, for example. So, um, if a patient is suffering a really high fever, right, and they're raging, there's a lot of heat, it's sudden onset, maybe the cause was being outside in the rain, getting your head wet, we immediately think of belladonna, right? So the effect of belladonna, immediately the body responds, but in a way that perhaps the fever initially actually might increase. And that would be like this, I would understand that being the secondary response, the body's reacting to the remedy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and the fever actually escalates a little bit. What we may term as aggravation is really a body's response, and that response to elevate the fever is actually beneficial because then the body's actually healing with that stronger fever, and then the fever breaks at a point when the fever is no longer needed by the body for whatever pathogen, virus, or whatever acute crisis. The fever is just not needed anymore because of the remedy. I'm not sure if that kind of explains it, but yeah, it would be the response of the body would be, the secondary response would be elevating the fever.
Actually, when we see drug proving, it is only concerned with the primary action. If you see, there is a heavy repetition of the doses to have an effect on the body. They don't wait for body to react.
Occasionally, we'll find when we're reading through proving data that a symptom was a curative action.
Curative action is secondary action.
Yeah, so occasionally we find that notation. For example, in the proving of causticum, which I don't have here because it's in the chronic diseases and I don't have a hard copy right here. It says that the person who was taking the proving was no longer felt angry and argumentative talking about newspapers and politics. And that was a curative action. So he needed that remedy to cure that symptom. There's something interesting here. It is impossible to divine the internal, essential nature of disease and the changes they effect on the hidden parts of the body. And it is absurd to frame a system of treatment on such hypothetical surmises and assumptions, it is impossible to divine the medicinal properties of remedies from any chemical hypothesis, or from their smell, color, or taste. And it is absurd to attempt from such hypothetical surmises and assumptions to apply to the treatment of diseases these substances, which are so hurtful when wrongly administered. Yet he says for thousands of years, people have been giving drugs to people without knowing its true effects. And so he says, I shall show what there is undeniably curable in disease and how the curative properties of medicines are to be distinctly perceived and employed for curative purposes. So he says that we have to know the true effects of a drug, and that chemical and mechanical considerations and things like that, and that the phenomena of disease is a natural phenomena, which then will have a matching natural phenomena with the proven medicine. And when those two things meet in the body, what happens?
Cure.
Right. Hahnemann calls it extinguishing the disease,
Mm.
which is interesting because the word extinguish means like to put out,
Yes.
to end. Like you extinguish your fire. When you turn off your knob of your cooker, you're turning off the fire. You're extinguishing the flame. Okay, who'd like to add something?
Madhu?
I think, oh, go, Mother.
No, no, काही
Go
नाही
ahead.
का?
I was just gonna go on that tangent of extinguishing. I think he used that. I think Vitosa explains it well, where he talks about it's almost like the remedy creates a response that is of a disease that is not only similar to the original disease, but that is stronger than the actual disease. And because it's remedy induced, it's also self-limiting in time and duration. And I think that he also goes on to mentioning that two diseases cannot simultaneously coexist. So when you have the similar disease created by the remedy, and it's stronger, the vital force then responds and is able to react to that stronger disease, and thereby when it extinguishes that stronger disease that is created by the remedy, it automatically extinguishes the original disease.
Yeah, displacement. Yep, Hahnemann says all those things himself.
That is what we call nature's law of cure.
Yes.
Madhu, share your screen to aphorism number 26.
There we go. This depends on the following homeopathic law of nature, which was sometimes, indeed, vaguely surmised, but not hitherto fully recognized, and to which is due every real cure that has ever taken place. A weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one, if the latter, while differing in its kind, is very similar to the former in its manifestations. Then we have a very big footnote. Anybody want to read the footnote?
I can read.
Okay.
And thus are cured both physical affections and moral maladies. How is it that in the early dawn, the brilliant Jupiter vanishes from the gaze of the beholder by a stronger, very similar power acting on its optic nerve, the brightness of the approaching day? In situations replete with fetid odors, wherewith is it usual to soothe effectually the offended olfactory nerves? With snuff that affects the sense of the smell in a similar but stronger manner. No music, no sugared cake, which act on the nerves of the other senses, can cure this olfactory disgust. How does the soldier cunningly stifle the piteous cries of him who runs the gauntlet from the ears of the compassionate bystanders? By the shrill notes of the fife, commingled with the roll of the noisy drum, and the distant roar of the enemy's cannon that inspires his army with fear. By the loud boom of the big drum, for neither the one nor the other would be the distribution of a brilliant piece of uniform, nor a reprimand to the regiment suffice. In like manner, mourning and sorrow will be effaced from the mind by the account of another, and still greater cause for sorrow happening to another, even though it be a mere fiction. The injuries consequences of too great joy will be removed by drinking coffee, which produces an excessive joyous state of mind. Nations like the Germans, who have for centuries been gradually sinking deeper and deeper in soulless apathy and degrading serfdom, must first be trodden still deeper in the dust by the Western conqueror until the situation become intolerable. Their mean opinion of themselves were thereby overstrained and removed. They again became alive to their dignity as men, and then for the first time, they raised their heads as Germans.
That is so poetic, right, guys?
Yes.
Yep. He talks about how if you overcome something with something stronger, it removes the original effect. And he puts it with things like bad smells and snuff, and soldiers using sounds to
Yeah,
drown out
here we can see the similarities.
Mhm.
Means the similarity in light, a daylight and a candlelight. You
Mhm.
can see similarity between smell, a strong odor, and something a pleasant odor, strong one and lighter one. You can see similarity between noise. We can whisper in the silent room, but we cannot hear the whisper in the heavy traffic.
Right. Yeah. And
Here, same law is applied. Weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by stronger one.
he gives a story in the
Yeah.
chronic diseases about a young woman who's had a bunch of misfortunes and sad things happen in her life, but that she gets better because she's heard stories where worse things happened.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like why some people, I mean, this is not common to everybody, but for some people, when they're in a sad mood, if they watch something like a sad movie or listen to sad music, they'll feel better. Some other people might
That's
actually feel
peculiar.
worse.
That's peculiar.
Mhm. But it's the same kind of philosophy. Siva Kumaran said that he has a network problem. Everybody get that? He was here, he tried, he shared, and now he's gone.
He's here, but he's not having network properly.
Yes, he can't communicate. Okay, Dr. MS, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Does Dr. MS have any questions or comments?
Mubashira. Hello?
Is this a man or a woman or? I don't know the name.
She's woman.
Oh, okay. So in the chat box, hi, everyone. Okay, so it's a female. See, we don't know because
She
I
usually
don't know this
attends these sessions.
okay. Mhm. Okay, oh, I hope you're learning something important or helpful or useful or interesting. But there are rules to proving. And when we follow the rules of proving, we get big books full of symptoms. And we are supposed to actually use this book full of symptoms to solve cases.
Right. When you buy any stuff from any shop, you get a small that booklet. What do you call
Pamphlet?
a booklet? User manual.
Oh, user manual. Yes, yes.
How to use that?
Mhm.
Same organizes user manual of homeopathy.
That's right. It gives us all the different rules to follow. So we know here, like, let's say if we just open a page to Bryonia, that when there's nausea and immediately afterwards voracious hunger, or in the morning voracious hunger with thirst and heat, or great hunger for 14 days, or excessive hunger for 16 days, or voracious hunger without appetite. I think Siva Kumar mentioned hunger without appetite today on Telegram. Yes, I'm pretty sure he did. So that's in Bryonia. And Bryonia has a bitter taste in the mouth. So there are lots of things that are just clearly shown in the proving data.
Bryonia taste is very typical taste, very peculiar.
Mhm.
In one of the book he called a metallic taste.
I only think of it as a bitter taste.
Yeah.
But bitter and metallic are different.
Metallic is metal tasting.
Yes, but they are
And
different, right?
bitter, yeah, bitter. What's a bitter substance? Lemons are bitter, kind of. Tamarind is bitter. What's
They are
bitter?
sour.
Huh?
Bitter, they are sour. Bitter gourd. Bitter gourd.
Right.
You know bitter gourd? Bitter gourd? No. Okay.
Unless you spell it.
Okay.
Gourd.
Bitter gourd.
Oh, bitter gourd. No, we don't have
Wow.
bitter gourd here.
Did you taste it in India?
Everyone in the waiting room. Okay.
There's people in the waiting room?
No,
No.
no. I open the room now.
If
Okay.
someone is in the waiting room, the message will pop up on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, so the preamble of the Materia Medica Pura is really good too. And it gives us a case of Bryonia.
Okay.
And he shows how he solved it using the proving data,
Yeah.
which I think that we have posted numerous times in the group. That man is far from being animated with the true spirit of the homeopathic system, is no true disciple of this benefit doctrine, who makes the slightest objection to institute on himself careful experiments for the investigation of the peculiar effects of the medicines, which have remained unknown for 2,500 years. Without this investigation, and unless their pure pathogenic action on the healthy individual have previously been ascertained, all treatment of disease must continue to be not only foolish, but even a criminal action, a dangerous attack upon the human life. Yeah, Devira shared a really good recording, a podcast, and Kim Elia, he says that it's a crime against humanity that homeopaths are not out in numbers telling people that they can treat corona and help people. He says it's basically, he thinks it's a crime against humanity that we don't speak up. We're so used to people saying, oh, it's homeopathy, right? We're so used to that. But, you know, we have the means to help people so tremendously, yet we don't speak up. And, you know, Hahnemann says it's a crime for people not to let others know. And I think he's got a really good point there. And I see that Devira has been doing a really, really good job over and over and over again. Places like Facebook say, I can help you with homeopathy. I can help you with homeopathy. She's doing a great job, but it's an uphill job. And some of us after decades just kind of go, we know what people are going to say. But still, if we can just reach a few, we can make homeopathy great again.
Actually, it is hard for people to convince that homeopathy can treat COVID. Like I treated COVID in many patients in India. And when those patients told somebody else that take homeopathy, I got treated, and they're not able to believe, they're not believing them. But this is also happening, yes. They know I got treated, I was COVID positive.
It's not about the belief, but it's about the fear, the panic state in which the people are actually living nowadays. Nobody wants to take a risk to die, and we are scared actually from those all news media.
Yes.
Well, where we live, a lot of people have totally seen through the panic. And there's like numerous organizations that are just like supply oxygen to people and things like that to keep them out of hospitals, keep them from getting secondary infections in hospitals. And I think that a lot of the panic has disappeared, but I don't own a television set, so I can't say about everybody. I noticed that, you know, there are certain groups of people who really are kind of like, okay, for most people are going to be fine if they get it. And that tends to be the majority of people that I see talking about it.
Good.
But then again, I don't have a television set. Maybe you need the television set to be properly frightened. They have a new one. There's a new one. My daughter's mother-in-law posted that they have a new disease that they're getting ready to come out with. And it is terrible. It's a hemorrhagic fever spread by bats. And they just had their first death from this hemorrhagic fever spread by bats that is transferred to humans in Africa. They already have the PCR tests for it and the vaccine for it, from what I've been able to see. So this might be the upcoming threat that will need its own vaccine, but it's a hemorrhagic fever. Do homeopaths know what to do with hemorrhagic fever?
Yes.
Yes.
Dengue.
Yeah.
Dengue here.
Right. So homeopaths know what to do with hemorrhagic fever. But imagine people out there they learn from the television that there's a hemorrhagic fever. They're going to get terrified. They're going to want shots. They're going to want this. They're going to want that. There's going to be expensive treatments.
I
It's
have
terrible.
one thing to tell.
Yes, please tell.
Actually, there was one patient came to my clinic last week. Not last week. It was on Sunday morning, and the baby, his mother, was hospitalized for chikungunya for 7 days in allopathic hospital.
Hmm.
And after 7 days, they were fed up and nothing was actually subside. It was same as they were went in the hospital on 7th day. And after that, someone told that go and take a homeopathy. And it works very well in chikungunya and dengue fever. So on Sundays, the relative consulted me and I said, okay, you can come. They got voluntarily discharged from that hospital and came into clinic with very high fever. And uh, it was just 3 hours and child was absolutely having no fever within 3
Yeah.
hours. And actually he was on all sort of antibiotics and everything whatever they can give, and fever was not coming down. And what I gave, it was just a belladonna dose.
So recently I got a case where the person is like 65 years old and he was continuously coughing. Like the flu season isn't there in India, and people get sore throat and cough. And this time the cough is severe. If you take allopathic medicine, the cough becomes very severe, like uncontrollable. But if you take homeopathy, I mean, it is managed in like 3 or 4 days or 5 days. But this patient is like, he's a nebulizer. He is taking nebulizer, he is taking steroids, and even after taking those, and they called me that this person is like continuously coughing for the whole day, even with the nebulizer. Then I started the water dosing like every 15 minutes. And he said, okay, he slept well. And after one day, the cough is reduced. And today he called me, the family called me. They said the cough is very much better. Very slight cough is there. And now little pain is there in the throat. And he was
Better.
taking allopathic medicine, antibiotics, steroids for like past 8 days. And he was not at all getting better. And I told them, don't take any antibiotics next time. Don't take steroids next time. Directly come to me.
Right. Just come here first. Come first,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Don't do that.
Yes.
Right. I know. There was a case of corona that was a few months ago that the person had started taking the steroid inhaler that was given by the Kupat Folim. And finally, they were desperate. And so, I mean, it takes desperation sometimes to call the homeopath. You know what I mean? They're desperate. And they're like, I don't want to go to hospital. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't need to worry about that. Just give me a few minutes. We'll answer some questions. We'll see how you feel. And, he was well in a couple of days, but it takes, somehow it's just like so hard for people to, even people who use homeopathy, sometimes it's just so hard for them to like wrap their head around it.
Patience. They lose just the patience. Yesterday only there is an allopathic doctor. He takes antibiotics. He knows about homeopathy. He says, I take homeopathy for 1 day or 2 days. I don't get fine. Then I take I take the antibiotics. I said, okay, call me. Give me 3 days. If you don't get well in 3 days, then take the antibiotic. I won't stop you, but give me at least 3 days. He said, I don't have the patience. If I'm not getting fine, I just pop up the antibiotics. And it takes 10 to 12 days to get better. Because you are taking 10 to 12 days to get better. But with homeopathy, you cannot wait for 3 days.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
Yes. Because you know what, with allopathy, it's like you pop up the pill and you feel a little fine for some time. It's like you take the inhaler, you feel fine for some time. Your cough is reduced. You say, okay, I'm feeling better. Then again, the cough is there. Then you take the inhalers. Then you feel fine.
Yeah, it's
So
a
they-
never-ending cycle
Yes.
of suppression.
Yes.
Or it's not, maybe it's not actually suppression, but you know, some kind of chemical treatment that opens things, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you know, but it's just not that efficient. I mean, it's one thing if somebody gets one headache one time and takes one Tylenol, but it's another thing if people have just something that keeps coming and coming and coming, and it's not going to go away until they receive that dynamized, stronger than the disease dose of medicine. Make
Yes.
it go away.
I also explain this to patient. You take allopathy, you will feel fine for some time. You take allopathy, you will feel fine for some time. But to stop that reoccurrences, you have to take homeopathy.
Mhm. That's a good way to put it.
Yes.
Okay, shall we wind up now?
Okie dokie. Well, I want to thank everybody who attended today and everybody in the future who will watch this video. I will thank you for your ongoing presence and interaction. I like it very much when activities are interactive and everybody contributes a little something at least. And hopefully this gives us food for thought.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will close and we will see come up with a new topic next week.
Oh, yes, please give us ideas for topics in the group. It helps.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.